Hello, Year 12. This is your screencast for the alternate paragraph on the question that says Stories We Tell presents multiple perspectives on Diane Polley, but it'd help if I wrote that question right. Ultimately, the film is Sarah Polley's story. I'm just going to fix that. I've done that twice now. Okay, so this is your question. The only word you probably need to know that I'm going to use today is author, which is a filmmaker whose personal influence and artistic control over a movie is so great that the filmmaker is regarded as the author of the movie. So just thinking about Sarah Polley, of course, as the author of this movie, I'm going to argue with the paragraph I give you today that the film is Sarah's because it's about the control she has over the narrative as the editor and her editorial choices, if that makes sense. Hopefully it will. So this is what we originally started with, thanks to Miss Brooks's screencast. We looked at the idea of Diane being a loved mother, a wife, a busy actress, and an aspiring and enthusiastic actress. A lot of you tried but got stuck writing about Diane as a woman of secrets. I don't blame you. I get stuck on this too. I can cobble together a paragraph. Don't love it. It's not, for me, this whole idea of her as a socially repressed woman is hard to write about, so we can probably do a paragraph, and I think we all do at some stage need to do a paragraph on this. It's important in case we have a question on our end of year exam that requires us to use a paragraph maybe on Diane as socially repressed. And then Miss Brooks talked about the film being about Sarah's journey of discovery and the way in which she's been changed by this experience. I kind of agree with the first and the second. I kind of get there, but I definitely don't personally look at this question originally, and it certainly makes sense when we watch Miss Brooks' screencast and think that that second paragraph is what I would come up with. So I'm going to show you three different paragraph ideas, my three paragraph ideas if it was my essay. These aren't the right ones or the wrong ones, just like Miss Brooks's, they're just three different ideas, and we want you guys to realise that there's lots of ways. For me, I'd write about Diane and the amalgamation of voices, and the fact that it is initially about Diane recreating an image of the mother she lost. I'd talk about that first, talk about the montages, the discrepancies. I'd talk about, points of those discrepancies. I think I really like the pregnancy one with Johnny and Pixie, but there's certainly plenty of other points or examples, okay? I myself found even this morning, I'm recording this on Tuesday morning, that I really wanted to go back and watch the film again. Now, I've seen this film maybe 10 times. There are still things that I forget and I want to pick up on, so I would really encourage that, like I said, in class. My second paragraph, which I'm going to teach you about today, I'm not going to bother with the first one, we've talked about that a lot in class, is that the film belongs to Polley because she makes the editorial choices. So although her voice remains mostly absent from the film, it's her commentary, alright, and we see this through like the cameras being visible and the camera equipment being visible. That word author, Polley's role as author, the fact that she's in control of everything, she's holding the power as the ultimate storyteller, and our evidence for this could be the conversation with Michael where he reminds viewers that she has the ability to manipulate and decide what she wants out of it. And then my third paragraph would be about the idea that the film is not actually about either person's story. Alright, I would, so I'd kind of do a paragraph on Diane, the film being about Diane to an extent, the film being about Sarah Polley to an extent. My third paragraph would be disagreeing with this section here. Ultimately, the film is Sarah Polley's story. I would disagree in my third and final paragraph and say it's not about a single person's story, but about the impossibility of establishing a singular truth. I'm going to talk about this on Thursday. So for today, Tuesday in class, you need to write me a paragraph on the film belongs to Polley. She is director, makes the editorial choices. We're going to talk about topic sentences in depth on Friday, okay, because I know that's an area that you guys are struggling with. What I've just done is I've quickly put together three potential topic sentences here that you could use. You don't have to use them though. By all means, go and write your own one. These are not perfect, okay? So one, the way in which the film is presented, representation of storytellers. That was the first one I kind of had from when I'd written this paragraph. And then I was like, oh, maybe I want to talk about the meta-narrative. So I wrote a topic sentence about the meta-narrative layer as employed, because of course the meta-narrative is being self-reflexive. So of course, whenever it's looking at what's underneath or being self-reflexive, that's when it's about Polley as the director. And then I was like, well, I can be more direct. I can say the film becomes Sarah Polley's stories. It's her role as director, which frames not only the search for who Diane Polley was, but the search to understand the way we tell stories about our lives. That was the third one that I wrote that was like really directed with regards to the essay question. Again, just remember that your topic sentence is what is your key idea. For me, the key idea of this paragraph is that the film belongs to Polley because she makes the choices. So I've kind of put my key idea up here. And then I've tried 3 different topic sentences. By all means, when you are practicing at home, when you're writing different drafts, put a couple of different alternative topic sentences in if you think topic sentences are something you need to work on. Feel free to fiddle around with them, okay? I've put down just some basic dot points for what I would want you to talk about, okay? Because I think it's sometimes a good idea to have some ideas. I'm certainly not saying that you have to talk about these things, and I certainly think you need to talk about more than these things, but this is kind of the basis of your paragraph. So Polley's voice remains mostly absent from the film, so most of the time we don't hear her, but then the film is her reconstruction of Diane, because she creates it, and her commentary when she's self-reflexive about the subjectivity of memory, about how memory is based on individuals. Then we need to come to evidence for that point, so cameras and lighting. So like when we see and I don't have the right words, I really should, but when we see the mics and the stand, so when we see her using the old camera to film the Super 8 footage, all right, when the interviewees say they're nervous, and when we hear Sarah Polley's voice, none of that's accidental. Obviously that could have all been edited out, but Polley chooses to leave it in there. And the reason is she wants to draw attention to the film as a construction, okay? So Polley's choice to draw attention to the film as a construction means that because of her role as editor, the film is ultimately hers, okay? Here's where I'm going with that. The film draws attention to Polley's role as an author. Alright, so Polley has the final say. She's the ultimate storyteller because she decides what goes into the film, and we know this because Michael actually draws attention to it, and Polley obviously wants us to think that it's in some ways her film, because otherwise she wouldn't have this conversation with Michael where he says, it all becomes farcical and it's about what she wants out of it, okay? So that comes up too in the meta-narrative, so you might want to watch that section again tonight for homework, where Michael says, at the end of this, you'll decide what you want about it. It's all a theatrical exercise, otherwise you just let 8 hours of footage run. So you might want to watch that tonight, okay, so you understand what I'm talking about. So also they highlight, and I haven't been very clear with this, but Polley highlights when the fourth wall is broken, which is like, again, drawing attention to this idea of the construction. So I said it becomes more about Polley commenting on the unreliability of storytelling to establish the truth, alright, and the film is more about her than her mother. What I've done here is I've put together a bit of a paragraph. It's too short. I talked yesterday about paragraphs needing to be 300 words. This is just over 200 words, so it's too short. It's missing something. I don't know what it's missing. I probably do, but I can't decide what else I would add to this, and I think that's okay. I think you've got the basis of a paragraph here, and please, by all means, read this, print it out, write it out, okay? But it needs something else, and I think what it needs is another example. So I tried to think of what my other example could be, because I've talked about the interviews, I've talked about like the interviewees drawing attention to it and the fact it's a construction, I've talked about the conversation with Michael, alright, and the editing, and you don't ever get to an answer, alright, and I'm not even sure now as I look at it again, and I just wrote this paragraph about this sentence here, you don't ever get to an answer. Polley reiterates that despite the multiple voices, stories we tell is an imprecise perception, not a conclusive truth. I feel like that's for a different essay question. So I changed that, and I'd almost put something else in here. This is where something else needs to go. What could you put in? That's a good question. You could talk more about the fact Polley is mostly absent from the film, but chooses to include moments that draw attention to the construction. So you could find another example. You could do this by going back to the meta-narrative more, I think. Go back to 122 in the film and look at how Sarah allows the focus of the film to come back to her in the construction. Look at when the fourth wall is broken. And then the other idea I had is that you could also talk about like the fact that from the get-go, she displays Michael in the recording studio and she shows her directing him, so it demonstrates how she is constructing the story. But the one thing I would say is if you are sort of stuck on another idea, is to go back to, and it'd help if I can find that, of course it's at the bottom, the right one, but to go back to Stories We Tell and watch this section where she talks about what her intentions are.
I don't know how long it would take.
So my version is 122.
And I wouldn't even pretend at this point to know how to tell it beyond beginning to explore it through interviews with everyone involved.
And I would say that this footage, all of this, when the cameras are within frame, is drawing attention to the film as a construction.
So that everyone's point of view.
Okay, and then I would find the section with Michael where he says it's all a construction.
It'll be exactly like the story. Each one of us will pick out, if any one of us were trying to edit it and decide what we wanted to keep, it would be the same farcical kind of theatrical exercise that we're all involved in. Oh, I want to keep that. Oh, that's rubbish.
So this is where I've pulled the quotes about it being farcical and theatrical.
Doing an interview straight and never doing
you talk about that,
editing
doing an interview straight.
Letting it run as it is. That would have been at least as close to truth as you can get.
So the fact Polley includes this, why does she include this?
Will turn this into something completely different.
What would you say this documentary is really about? Am I breaking the fourth?
You could include this. You could say that the fact that Polley includes her family members breaking the fourth wall and turning the attention on herself suggests that the film becomes more about her in the end. And especially because this is kind of at the end of the film, the crux of the film, okay? I hope this made sense. Good luck writing about this today. You will be fine. Use what I've kind of started here, build upon it. If you're stuck, use each other, okay? Work together. But remember that this is your essay question. So I'm after a draft of this and you get to choose which paragraphs. You can use any of the ones Miss Brooke suggested or any of the ones I suggest this week. I'm after this Friday night to clarify. Okay, so I'll put on this end slide here. Due Friday night. There were questions about the practice sack. I want prac sack retyped, typed this week as well. And then over the weekend, feedback to each other. But I'll talk about that more in class on Friday. If anything goes wrong, just put your head down and do your best. Have fun. I'll be back tomorrow. Bye.